You ordered a review of the F-35 contract during this rift with the U.S. The military has long said they want the F-35. We're now hearing that the military has told you they want to stick with that contract.
The review is not completed, so there's no settled advice into the government.
How much of this is part of a negotiation tactic with President Trump?
Part of the consideration is the F-35 best suited for that relative to other options. Other considerations, as Canadians would expect, is value for money and economic impact here in Canada. The review is driven by the need and the responsibilities and approach that we're taking to making sure that this very large and necessary investment in defense is done so most effectively.
You ordered a review of the F-35 contract during this rift with the U.S. The military has long said they want the F-35. We're now hearing that the military has told you they want to stick with that contract. Did you expect the forces to potentially say something different? And how much of this is part of a negotiation tactic with President Trump?
No, I'd say a couple of things. First off, the review is not completed, so there's no settled advice into the government. First point. Second, the nature of aerial combat, the nature of warfare, the nature of our responsibilities, the scale of our investment, all of those elements have changed over the course of recent years, and then with respect to the commitment, the resources that we're going to put in, that quadrupling of resources by the end of this decade. We have a responsibility to make sure that those are spent in the way that has a maximum impact. I'll give you an example. We have a much greater threat and associated responsibilities in the Arctic. We've taken a number of steps over the horizon radar, early stage of that process, having forces on land, air, and the sea, 365 days a year, moving that from 4 months. But we also need the appropriate air capabilities for the Arctic, for the runways in the Arctic, for the threats that we're faced in the Arctic as well. And so part of the consideration is the F-35 best suited for that relative to other options. Other considerations, as Canadians would expect, is value for money and economic impact here in Canada. So I would make the core point that the review is driven by the need and the responsibilities and approach that we're taking to making sure that this very large and necessary investment in defense is done so most effectively.
Next question, Canadian Press.
Hi, Mr. Prime Minister. Kyle Duggan from the Canadian Press. Can I get your reaction to Israel saying that Israel planning to take over Gaza City?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Well, I would say first, we join others, many others, in viewing that this is wrong, that this action is not going to contribute to an improvement in the humanitarian situation on the ground. It is going to put the lives of the hostages at greater risk rather than lessening it. We reiterate our call for an immediate ceasefire. We reiterate our call for Hamas to immediately return all of the hostages and their remains. We reiterate that Hamas has no role going forward, and we'll continue to work with our allies to contribute what we can to achieving those outcomes.
Thank you. And as a follow-up, could I get your reaction to the jobs reports, a loss of 41,000 jobs, worse than expected? Thank you.
Sure. A couple of things. One is that obviously we look very closely at developments in the labor market. We had a very strong job report in June, over 80,000 jobs created. We now have the July jobs reduction of just over 40,000. What's interesting about, if you look across those areas, the geographic spread is, in the July report, is more in Western Canada. It's in Alberta and Saskatchewan. less in the manufacturing sectors where we will expect we expect to see pressure, and there are pressures, which is why we're taking action in steel and lumber, and we will in autos and other areas. I'd also note that in that jobs report, the unemployment rate held steady, and for the second straight month, we've seen a further acceleration in wage growth. So wage growth now at 3.5%. Up from below 3, so wage growth now outpacing the growth in CPI. So that, combined with the tax cut that we put in place, combined with the removal of the consumer carbon tax and other measures, progress on cost of living. Just to be clear, progress. We're not satisfied that that's enough. There's much more that needs to be done, which is why we're looking to make sure, and to bring it back to today, and why we're here, we're looking to make sure, and we will make sure, that as we build our military, we'll build our economy as well.
Prime Minister, given that you have said that Canada will recognize a Palestinian state, and given that Prime Minister Netanyahu has an arrest warrant issued by the International Criminal Court, and yet he is still considering and he wants to take over parts of Gaza City, will the Canadian government consider sanctions against Israel?
Thank you for the question. We are working on multiple fronts to try to bring a level of stability to the region, then security, then peace to the region. And in terms of those fronts, yes, working with allies, working with the French, working with the British, working with partners in the Middle East, other partners in the Middle East, to work towards stabilization of the situation. And we don't see the road. What we see is the erosion of the possibility of a two-state solution because of facts on the ground, actions on the ground. And that's why we made the announced the intention predicated on various factors that we did. But what we're also doing, and again, I want to bring it right back to where we are today, is doing what we can under extremely difficult circumstances to provide humanitarian aid to those suffering in Gaza with our Jordanian partners, but very importantly, directly with the Canadian Armed Forces. Earlier this week, just under 22,000 pounds of aid brought through Cyprus and airdropped into Gaza. And that's the forces at its best in one of the worst situations in the world.
Prime Minister, are sanctions on the table against Israel? Is that being discussed?
Look, there's various routes, immediate assistance, the work we're doing, as I say, with partners. We've made announcements. I'm not on the cusp of making another announcement at this point.